So I'm actually just about to leave the house to start recording this vlog, and I encountered the first security measure that is popular in almost every home in America, which is the front door lock. Common in most homes, and then a basic screen door, which, as we will see, is not the norm in many neighborhoods. So walking around Georgetown, you get a sense of the different security features that are prevalent in wealthy, generally whiter neighborhoods. And so we're gonna go walk around and look for some of them and see if we can find any. It has literally been 3 seconds since the last time, and I don't know if you see that sticker on the window there. That is an ADT sticker. And that is one of the popular home security systems in the United States. We have it back in California, in a lot of the neighborhoods out there. I think that one of the most important features to know about these security systems is the fact that they are extra. They cost extra money. They don't just come with the home like bars on windows or more fortified doors do in other neighborhoods. And so we see right off the bat that there are the different type of security mechanism that residents in richer neighborhoods are using to keep their personal home safe, as opposed to residents of different neighborhoods. One thing to know about security systems just in general is that they are all very covert. Apart from seeing the sticker on the side or the little placard that you put on your lawn, there isn't really much saying that, you know, this place has a home security system and that you probably don't want to rob it. And then there's another more recent feature, which is the doorbell camera, which has been gaining a lot of popularity, especially once again in wealthier communities. And this doorbell camera is actually a very key site in which the surveillance apparatus of the state and the personal security measures that individuals take actually align. The city of DC actually is giving out hundreds of dollars to people who allow the city to be able to connect to these cameras and use them. And so we see the security features in very wealthy, very white neighborhoods being integrated into the surveillance apparatus of the state. And security doesn't just apply to buildings, it obviously applies to individuals. And in this alley that I've been walking in, a lot of my friends who are women have said that they actually don't feel safe walking in the alley at night because there's no light here and they feel like they would be more vulnerable to attack or something like that. However, as a person of color in a very white, very rich neighborhood, I basically just use the alleys to get around because, especially at night, because my visibility in this type of space puts me in harm's way. And so we see that security has to do with not just the spaces that we inhabit day to day, but also the paths we take to get to those spaces. Those areas are securitized in particular types of ways, and whether or not we actually feel safe in them is highly dependent on the social identities that we carry and that have social meaning within a particular place. This intersection right here has made me late to more meetings, more classes, and more events than any other in my life. So I'm now on the Georgetown University campus, and one of the ways in which Georgetown University decides to deploy security also demonstrates the ways that security, surveillance, and identification all intersect with each other in ways that make them very difficult to disentangle. Gotta get into this building. And I got my handy dandy go-card. So I actually couldn't record the trip up here because my friend's hands were full and I had to be the one to use my go-card to swipe in. Whatever. Sad. My go-card didn't work. Couldn't let me in. And identification systems like this are in place at universities across the country and in corporations across the world. And they are security features, but they also double as identification surveillance features. People can track when you enter or exit a building. People can know where you went at a particular time. And so it's very difficult to properly disentangle the issue of identity surveillance, and security. And now we are entering Red Square, where there is normally, but probably not right now, some police officer posted somewhere out here. And the presence of GUPD is one of the most obvious ways in which the security apparatus of the university is visible. And if these GUPD officers want your name and go card, you gotta give them your name and go card. They have the right to demand it of you, and you have to give it to them. And the instances in which GUPD actually invokes this right to demand go cards or IDs also reveals what they perceive as unsafe and what they perceive their job as being and who they're actually securing. Just this year, for example, I know of 2 cases in which 2 Black people were walking on campus, neither of them students, and these people have the right to be on campus. Georgetown is an open campus. It may be private property, but the gates are wide open. The whole campus is open. And so the idea that people of the public can't be on campus is preposterous. People come in all the time, tourists come in all the time. However, the people that were stopped were Black people from DC. And so I think that demonstrates that Georgetown has a very, very well-defined idea of who they are protecting and who they are protecting those people from. And this is a very, very racialized definition. Of course, the security apparatus in DC looks different in different neighborhoods. So we see coming up ahead that there is a call box that you need to enter, and this is common everywhere else in other places of the country and around the world. And what things like this show is that security, a lot of times, and most of the time, is inherently about exclusion. It's about keeping certain people that you deem unsafe out and people you deem safe and trustworthy in. So I just actually found, accidentally, what I was looking for. Bars! You can see it, but yeah, there it is. You can see there are bars all along the first floor windows. It's an apartment complex. But at the top, nothing. And the reason I even got interested in this topic is because I've recently been looking at new places to live in DC, and I was looking around new neighborhoods in Petworth. And I noted that all the doors had iron bars on them, all the windows had iron bars on them, and it reminded me of my cousin's house actually in Richmond, which, if people don't know, is a pretty poor community. Back when I was a child, at least, that's when I would visit Richmond most often with these cousins. It was a very, very dangerous city. And so seeing that prompted me to ask, like, hey, did this neighborhood used to be a poor neighborhood? And my friend was explaining, yeah, actually, it's been gentrifying a lot in recent years. My friend was explaining to me that his roommates all felt unsafe if that front iron door wasn't locked, as if the very presence of that indicated that this neighborhood wasn't safe like other neighborhoods were. And that led me to realize that security is coded very differently in very different settings, and that people themselves in their own community are undertaking securitization themselves. It's not only a state or a corporate project, it is also a very personal and community-based project that has certain social meanings and that indicate to people passing through what they can expect to a certain degree. So whereas the in-home security system operates on a level of uncertainty and it relies on you not knowing whether or not a house is actually protected or not, the bars on the windows are open displays of protection. They say, something's here, you are not going to get through this. Here is our protection mechanism. It puts it out all for you to see and makes that visibility the deterrence. And none of what I said is to suggest that wealthy people don't gate off their communities. That's actually something we've studied extensively in the course. Just look at how they fence off their tennis courts. However, the gating and securitization processes of both groups are very different. The gate here seems to be much further out than the gate for a poorer community where it might be right up against the windows and the doors. And I think that what all of this goes to show is that securitization is not just something that the state is doing and that the state is forcing on people. People are actively taking steps to securitize their own communities, and in different ways. The methods that people use to securitize their houses are coded in very racist and classist ways. And I think that these securitization practices become coded so that when you're in a poor community, you see the methods through which they securitize their neighborhood and their belongings in their homes. You code that place immediately as dangerous, as opposed to when you're walking around Georgetown. There are kids playing in a field. What could be dangerous about that? The social meanings that we attach to these securitization practices of different individual communities has a big impact on how and why we regard certain neighborhoods as safe or unsafe, or as full of crime, or the ideal place to raise a family. And the way that these areas are coded doesn't necessarily need to reflect the reality on the ground. It doesn't have to reflect the statistics of an area. However, just because it has a particular architectural security feature, it is coded as a certain thing, irrespective of the facts of that actual neighborhood. So now I'm back home. I'm in my back patio, basically, behind the safety and security of this fence that is set up to divide and keep people in and keep people out. Now, the reason that I chose to do this project in a vlog style was just to demonstrate how ubiquitous all these security features are. And I think a lot of times we are very quick to point out when corporations have certain policies that are security features that are heavily discriminatory, and we'll call it out when the state does it. However, a lot of times the field of urban studies in general is ignoring the fact that people who live in cities also have agency and are also participating and sometimes fighting against these securitization practices, and that the securitization practices that individuals or that communities have social meanings, that it is those meanings that determine to a very, very big degree how people will regard that neighborhood. Sorry, I forgot to finish this thought while I was vlogging. I think walking around and vlogging, you really get a sense of how intertwined the systems of identification and surveillance and security are. It's very difficult, and I would argue impossible, to disassemble them into their respective little slices and pieces. They inform each other and they affect each other in very important ways. The security mechanisms that are taking place in Georgetown, yes, are launched by individual families or households, but they seek to integrate their personal security system with the state apparatus. Whereas in different neighborhoods that don't have access to in-home security systems, they are not integrating themselves with the state apparatus. In fact, they are very clearly not trying to connect with that. Ultimately, I think that we need to really radically expand what we consider to be security. You know, security could mean lights or lack of them in an alley. Security could mean bars, or it could be just a stick and placard on a front lawn. Security means very different things, and only looking at what the state or corporations or supranational organizations are doing in the realm of security is really ignoring how people are actually interacting with security every single day, when they leave the house and when they come home, while they lock and unlock a door.